So, we're going to talk about a story that connects global headlines to, well, the heart of the home, the kitchen. It's a pretty wild ride showing how a distant conflict can spark a massive, unexpected revolution right on the Indian cooktop.
It really does sound like a riddle, doesn't it? What on earth could possibly link geopolitical tensions happening thousands of miles away to the simple act of someone making dinner in Kolkata? Well, as it turns out, the connection is incredibly direct, it's immediate, and it all comes down to one really simple question. What's fueling the nation's stoves?
And this is the result. 30 times. That's not a typo. That number represents a huge, almost overnight shift in how people were shopping. Just keep that number in your head for a minute, because it is the key to understanding the sheer scale of what happened next.
Okay, so let's trace this whole thing back to the source. Let's follow that ripple. How does a conflict in one part of the world manage to quite literally turn up the heat in kitchens halfway across the globe?
It all starts right here. You see, India relies heavily on imported liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, for cooking. And a massive portion of that LPG has to travel through the Strait of Hormuz, which is a super critical shipping lane. So when conflict flares up in that region, that vital supply chain gets squeezed. And that squeeze creates waves of uncertainty.
And that global uncertainty, well, it didn't stay global for very long. Pretty soon, that squeeze started to be felt on the ground in India, starting with the businesses that absolutely depend on a steady supply of fuel. The commercial kitchens were basically the canaries in the coal mine. Restaurants, food vendors, they started reporting delays and really uneven supplies of their commercial cylinders. Then you started hearing reports about black market sales, prices jacked way up. And that's when the problem really hit home, when regular households found their online booking systems for a simple refill were suddenly just not working. And this quote from a homemaker, Veena Jain, just sums it up perfectly. This is the moment it stops being some abstract economic problem on the news and becomes a very real, very urgent question. How am I going to cook dinner for my family tonight? And her solution? Well, that points us directly to the next chapter of this whole story. With their main source of cooking fuels suddenly up in the air, people did not wait around. What followed was a massive, almost instantaneous rush for an electric alternative.
The reaction was just staggering. The online retailer Flipkart reported that sales of induction cooktops skyrocketed to 25 times their normal level. Now, this didn't happen over a month or even a week. This was over just 2 days, with cities like Delhi and Kolkata seeing the biggest spikes. And this wasn't just a one-off. Over at Amazon India, the surge was even more dramatic. Remember that number from the beginning? 30-fold. A 30-fold increase in induction cooktop sales. This was the moment people decided they needed to hedge their bets against an uncertain future, and they did it fast. And the pivot to electric went way beyond just cooktops. As you can see here, sales of electric cookers jumped 4 times, while things like air fryers and kettles saw a 2-fold increase. It was a complete scramble to electrify the kitchen, basically as an insurance policy. This quote from a Flipkart spokesperson really captures the psychological shift perfectly. The induction cooktop went from a kitchen upgrade, something that's nice to have, into a survival necessity, almost overnight. That is a powerful change in how people think, and it was driven entirely by anxiety. But why this specific appliance? Out of everything, what made the induction cooktop the hero of this story? To get that, we need to break down the tech and see how it stacks up against a traditional gas stove. The science behind it is actually pretty neat. Instead of a flame, it uses an electromagnetic field to heat the pan or pot directly. This means no open flame, which is a huge safety advantage. And because the cooktop surface itself doesn't get hot, the kitchen stays cooler and it's way easier to clean. When you put them side by side, the advantages become really clear. Look at efficiency. Induction is up to 90% efficient, while a gas stove loses over half of its heat just to the air around it. For safety and air quality, induction is the clear winner. No gas leaks, no indoor pollutants. And of course, there's the big one, the appeal of a simple, flat surface that you can just wipe clean. And this all leads us to the big question. Was this just a temporary panic? Or are we actually witnessing the beginning of a permanent shift in the Indian kitchen? Now, it's really important to look at the official response. The government and the petroleum minister came out to reassure the public, saying there was no need to panic and that India's fuel supplies were secure despite all the global tensions. And there's another layer to this.
The authorities also clarified that homes connected to piped natural gas, or PNG, were pretty much insulated from this crisis. Because those supplies were secure and a top priority, not every single household was facing the same level of uncertainty.
All of this seems to be pointing to the emergence of a brand new concept, the hybrid kitchen. People aren't just throwing out their gas stoves. Instead, they're adding an electric option next to it. It's an insurance policy against future supply shocks and price swings. It's a really strategic adaptation.
And so, we're left with this thought. A conflict in West Asia causes an LPG supply scare, which triggers a 30-fold surge in induction cooktop sales, which in turn creates the hybrid kitchen. So, is this crisis-driven adaptation just a temporary blip? Or have millions of households, now that they've experienced the benefits of electric cooking, just accidentally started a permanent shift into the future?